I'm Major Botten, and these are the lessons that I learned as a company commander from NTC Rotation 21-05. There are 5 lessons that I learned. Out of all of these 5, only one of them I think I did well going into this rotation. The other 4 were lessons that I learned throughout the exercise that I wish I would have done better. The first is be precise in your planning. Second is solve for immediate reconnaissance at the company level. Number 3 is attack the enemy rear area and have a plan to defend your own. Number 4 is you should be deliberate in your MEDEVAC planning and the criteria. And number 5 is equip yourself with the tools to make your planning faster than your opponents. I was a Stryker Infantry Company Commander for 3 years. During that time, I served at XCTC 2019 and YTC, NTC Rotation 21-05, and also as a commander for Enhanced Forward Presence Poland 2021 through 22. Prior to that, I was a Stryker Mortar PL for 2.5 years through the Stryker Fielding and the MFCS Fielding. Prior to that, I was a Bradley PL for 2.5 years, and I've spent over 15 years in the 81st Brigade. Currently, I serve as the Highlander S3 and Battalion Administrative Officer as an AGR. The first lesson that I learned at NTC was to be precise in your planning. When you receive products from hire, be precise and deliberate as you transpose them. If you draw a circle around an objective that's much larger than what has been tasked to you, it may result in hours of undue effort, planning, coordination, and execution. Here's an example, and this is one of the examples from NTC. When we received the mission from our hire unit, we drew a large objective around a valley. Now, if you looked at this valley and saw how big this objective was, you may interpret that you need to send multiple companies to attack and seize this terrain. So you may establish 2 support by fires and then shoot the gap based on the terrain and our base play. However, the objective that we really were tasked to seize was just OP Hill. And on that objective, there was about 5 to 10 OP4 and probably could have just been a company objective. But because we had drawn the circle so large, we determined as a team that we would need to send all the companies to attack and seize this terrain. And so what could have been just a simple company mission, probably no more than a couple hours, turned into a 24-hour event. So to avoid this, define your objectives clearly and precisely. You also want to avoid overplanning and unnecessary complexity, and follow the measure twice, cut once principle. Trust the staff above you, but verify everything. And how do we take a tactical pause in the planning to really verify that we understood what the objectives were? We would have been able to do this better. Even into the Battalion S2 IPOE, because of how big we drew the objective, they determined that the force that was going to be in that terrain was significantly larger than what it actually was. And had we been more precise in planning that objective just around OP Hill, we would have been able to have deductions that it was a much smaller force that we would be encountering. That was lesson 1. Lesson 2, solve for intermediate reconnaissance at the company and platoon level. It is imperative that you make contact with the smallest force possible at NTC and have room for decision making and maneuver when you do your movement to contact missions. So what I wish I would have done better is designate fire teams to apply reconnaissance patrol techniques, get them out of their trucks and pull our ICVs forward and achieve a probable line of deployment as near of the objective as possible. I didn't do this very well. I did dismount fire teams to help navigate our strikers through some of the complex terrain and restricted terrain that we were going through. But that was their primary role, was communicating back to the driver about where to navigate. What they weren't doing is looking up and out to try to determine where the anti-tank enemy threats were and look for those OPs that were revealing our position. The LRST was deep, and they did an excellent job of identifying their enemy's rear area. The cav was kind of in the middle, but what I didn't solve for was that distance between me and the cav, and oftentimes we were getting ambushed in that distance. So as you can see here with the diagram, you want to dismount that fire team and start pulling that probable line of deployment closer and closer towards the objective. And that's really so that your company doesn't have to walk as far, and we can get those strikers up into effective range with the weapon systems that are mounted on top of them, pull them to the nearest IV line towards the objective so that you can maintain speed, surprise, and tempo. Lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, Attack the enemy rear area and have a plan to defend your own. There is a devastating effect of achieving the attack on your enemy's rear area. Similarly, if it happens to you, you will experience a sense of panic, despair, and hopelessness every time. Do not become target fixated as a commander or platoon leader on where you think the enemy will come from. They likely will not. And this is one that I still feel to this day, the feeling when I realized that I had been enveloped and the enemy was in my rear area and taking out our ICBs from the rear. So this is what it looked like, and this is the terrain where it happened at. I was the lead company as we moved up through Refrigerator Gap, and I was to establish a defense in the vicinity of that small valley there by Reno. When I did that, I thought that we went through excellent steps at EA Dev, and we did a great job of establishing our defense. And we determined that the enemy's most likely course of action was that they were going to come through the small, narrow gap on the high-speed MSR there, Silver Lakes, and there really was about no other option where they could come from. So we thought, great, what should we do with that? Well, let's identify where we think their supporting efforts are going to come from, and let's establish some OPs out there. So we did that, and we found their supporting attacks. And maybe they were going to come over that mountain, but it was probably unlikely. Then we established an obstacle belt, and we did that with the engineers that had been task organized to us, and they did a great job with the infantrymen establishing a great obstacle. And the enemy actually started to probe that obstacle, which then caused us to get further target fixated that was the direction that they were going to come from. And when we did that, what we didn't understand was that they were going to shoot the gap through Alpha Pass, and they were going to come back and establish an attack by fire position in our rear area. And they got back behind our sister company, who was kind of on the other side of a terrain feature and couldn't see that they had basically skirted that mountain range to come up to our rear, and they completely isolated us up in Refrigerator Gap. And only once I realized that we were being attacked from the rear did we start to pay attention to that area as we thought we were protected. So here's how we can be better. Be aware of your surroundings and potential vulnerabilities. You may think that your 6 is covered. It's probably not. Consider the possibility of an attack from unexpected directions, which this is a very long movement for them to make, and there was nowhere in my planning that I thought that they were going to make that bull run charge through Alpha Pass to come and envelop me. Maintain situational awareness and adapt to changing circumstances, and prioritize security and protection of your flanks and rear. It has to happen. Don't get target fixated. Where you think they're going to come is probably not where they're going to come. But if they probe you, it may confirm your bias towards that direction and cause you to become fixated. That was lesson 3. Lesson number 4 is be deliberate in your MEDEVAC planning and have criteria. So you always need to have a deliberate plan for CASEVAC and MEDEVAC, but understand that you are still in the fight. If you call in a MEDEVAC bird during your night infiltration and they white light your LZ, the enemy now knows your position and your intentions. And that's exactly what happened. Our company did a great job of SPing right on time at 02. We had been moving for about an hour when one of our lead drivers started to experience some rough symptoms, probably caused by the inhalation of fumes inside his ICV. And he started to kind of get blurred vision and come in and out of consciousness. So we stopped the convoy. We got him out. My medic, who did a phenomenal job assessing the casualty, made a recommendation to me that, hey, we got to get this guy out of here via air. So we had some pathfinders. We established an LZ, and we called in the bird, and we got him out of there. Soldier was fine. Came back to train a couple days later. No harm, no foul. However, looking back on that situation, I think we should have gone through a triage algorithm to determine whether or not we could have moved that soldier to the rear, not revealed our position, and stayed a little bit more in the tactical fight that was NTC. Obviously, we never want to jeopardize a soldier during training, but I think we could have exercised our ability to push him back to the role 1 and then let the docs make the determination, because I think the patient was probably a little bit closer towards the delayed or the immediate, and we were only about 30 minutes from getting him to a higher level of care anyways. So tactical pause, have criteria, and then understand you're still in the fight. So develop a plan for casualty evacuation and medical treatment, consider the potential for continued combat operations during the CASEVAC, and prioritize the safety and security of your personnel always. Be prepared to adapt your plan, because this revealed where we were at, and shortly after that, we had been ambushed. And during the ARs, it was determined that, yeah, we knew exactly where you were coming from because the bird white lighted your entire convoy. That was lesson number 4. All right, lesson number 5, final lesson. Equip yourself with the tools to make your planning faster than your opponents. This really is the only thing that I think I did well going into NTC. All of those other things were things that I look back on and, man, I should have done that better. But what I think I did do well was building and equipping myself with tools to speed up planning, hopefully so that I could be faster than my opponent. So this can come in the form of terrain model kits, op-board shelves that are erasable and scannable, battle boards, and then establishing a planning bay in your Stryker with screens and shells and whiteboards and everything that you need as a company commander or platoon leader to make yourself faster than your opponent. The guys at NTC, they do it all the time, right? So we have to develop and prepare ourselves well to be faster than them, and this is one of the tools that we can use. One of the things I found really effective was I bought the Rocket Book, which is like erasable paper. Also has a QR code on it, so you can scan it into your phone and use a erasable pen. I cut those out, and then I took my condensed MCCC op-board shell that I made, specific for NTC, and I printed that shell onto those Rocket Book pages. Hole punched them, put them in a binder, and that became a really great tool to rapidly reset in between missions or to keep different parts of the mission the same that were needed to, or that needed to stay the same, but then be able to quickly erase and change the concept sketch or the concept of sustainment as necessary, depending on the changes of mission. I also think having a really big battle board helped me plan very well and maintain situational understanding of where my company was at. Get the big plexiglass on both sides. I also like to put white sheets of paper inside the map so that I can use it to write down grids or write down notes as I'm planning. And then take out a whole row of seats in your Stryker and then put that tough box in there with the map board on top, and it makes a really great planning space. Then you can equip, you can link your JVCP up to computer screen so that you have some monitors right there in front of your planning bay, and just develop kind of like a nice little planning area for yourself using your tools. Also, as you can see here, this picture was taken at NTC. It does make and transition to a really great serving table if necessary, if you need a spot to run your jet boils and cook your Spam. So these are the 5 lessons that I learned at NTC. As always, make sure that your lessons don't die in a green book, and make sure that they're not just lessons that are encountered. If you can encounter the lessons, you can experience them, but until you start teaching them to others and actually changing your practices based on the lessons that you experience, only then do they become lessons learned. So thank you all for your time. Highlander 3 out.